Okay. So here, there's no one record on the, you guys can go ahead and start the meeting. Record.
Ready?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. I'd like to call the meeting to order. Wednesday, October 9th, 2024, 6 P.M. Planning and zoning regular meeting. Do we have, let's do a pledge of allegiance first. Please. Repeat after me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Declarations of conflict of interest, anyone?
No, none.
None. Okay, item C, review and approval of the minutes. Anybody have a chance to read the minutes last time?
I did, and I have a few comments on one of them.
Okay, before you make your comments, I have one comment, which is I forgot to welcome Darlene to our meeting.
In 3D.
And it's a pleasure to have you here. Appreciate all that you're doing. And so go ahead.
In the folder, Crystal.
Yeah, you guys already, I saw the changes that
I did, in red.
I've already changed them back over, and someone changed some in green, and I've already those changes and updated them.
Okay. That's all I have.
Thank you.
Perfect.
So I move we approve the minutes of September 19th, 2024, and September 25th, 2024 as amended.
Is it 25th or the 20th? Is it the 25th or the 29th? It would be the 25th.
Yeah.
I'm mistaken, I'm sorry. Okay. I second that motion.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Yes.
Any noes? Unanimous. We come to item D, open forum. Limit 2 minutes per speaker. We talk about anything not on the agenda. You want to try that, Shia? Shia? Okay. Item E, commissioner comments. Not applicable. Do I hear a motion to close the public meeting, open the public?
Does anyone have a comment? Or why is it not
Do commissioner comments refer
to
to,
us?
comments from the open forum, or is it
No,
just Jim?
Just us, Jen.
Oh, good, let's have some commissioner comments, please.
I have no comment. I just want to thank everyone for their flexibility. And things are headed in a very good direction.
No,
Comments?
And the open house of the church, that's now transforming into our town center. Community center was town hall was lovely. That's it.
Excuse me 1 second. I went to the open house, food was great, music was awesome. I felt, a little bit bad that I didn't participate more in preparing for all things that Shia did and, Crystal and the mayor. I felt like I wasn't in step. Fortunately, my wife said, get the heck down there. The notice said that you'd be able to meet your town officials, so that's a plus for Diane. Thank you for everybody for filling in and being there, I appreciate it. Okay, any other comments from commissioners? Right, move to the public hearing, do I hear a motion?
I motion to open the public hearing. Do we need a second?
Do we have to close the public meeting?
Yes.
That's what I thought. I motion to close the public meeting and open the public hearing.
I'll second.
I have a motion. Close the public meeting and open the public hearing. Do I hear a second? Got a second? From Val. All those in favor, say aye.
Yes.
Aye. Items for comment. Ordinance 2024. Amending chapter 40 and chapter 2 of the Virgin Uniform Land Use Ordinances. And somebody, gave me a idea of an understanding of 2024, amending chapter 40 and 2.
I can help you with that one, since it's one that I've been involved with. It is a live work category for commercial use. It allows a business owner to have a residential unit on his commercial unit for employee housing only. That all started because I had a tour business where my guys could not afford to be anywhere near where they work. And there's no available affordable housing for them, so this was a way to create some units that possibly could help with the employee housing or workforce housing or. So what it's doing is defining what it is and adding it as a approved use for commercial.
But we're not discussing this,
Yes.
this is the public hearing.
Yeah, I'm just
Right.
explaining what it is for Kent.
Okay, thank you.
And there is a typo. That was mine, but it's listed twice. It says that no parking shall be required for residential square footage, and right below it says no parking shall be required for residential square footage, providing so that line 2.
Yeah, we'll talk about that. I got it. It's on the next one.
So, help me, do we,
It's just for the public, the
So
only
there's no
public.
public comments, so we go on to the next item, the public hearing. Correct.
That's just something.
I think it's appropriate to briefly say what the ordinance or the chapter is about, the item is about.
You
A,
guys can say what it was about.
so is there any item, any comments from public? If not, we'll move to A2, an ordinance 2024. An ordinance of the town of Virgin amending section 4.02, section 4.02D, and section 4.02F, Uniform Land Use Code, to clarify that planning commission chair pro tem, and rules of procedure are subject to approval by Virgin Town Council. Any comments from public? There are none. Item A3, ordinance 2024, an ordinance of the town of Virgin providing that the Virgin Uniform Land Use Code be amended by revising section 20.10, the meeting procedures of the Developmental Review Committee, the DRC, to clarify that the DRC is a public body and to require posting of notices pursuant to Utah's Open and Public Meetings Act. Any comments? Item 4, zone change V 2151B 1130 something SR9. Is that 1130 east? Probably. Where am I?
Item 4.
1130 East SR 9 from rural residential to highway resort zone. Any comment from public?
Angelique Glazer, landowner, just no real comment other than the obvious that I'm requesting a zone change.
Angelia, can we question
No.
comments? Okay.
So
Right.
that's it. Thanks.
Thank you.
I'll make a motion, we close the public hearing and open the public meeting.
Now second?
I have a motion to close the public hearing and open the public meeting. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Um. So it says, Crystal, a motion and vote for items 2 and 3. Is Riker here today for an update on number 1?
Riker is online. Riker?
Yes, I'm here.
Hang on, Riker, we need to turn you up a little bit.
For what?
Discussion and possible vote.
Yeah, on,
You should have said that.
what is it?
It said that in the specific numbers, it doesn't say it, okay, but it does say it. Thank you for that.
I thought it said, does it not? Yeah,
It does, it does.
Riker, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I'm just moving the mic to you. Okay.
Riker, you're up.
What's I didn't catch that.
Riker, this is Darlene. Do you have any changes that you made to the subdivision ordinance based on any comments you received?
Yeah, so there are, I got your comments, Darlene, and I've gone through those to look at any changes that might need to be made. One of those specifically that needs to have direction from the planning commission, it pertains to, let me pull that up. It pertains to the administrative land use authority designated to approve the final plat.
Uh-huh.
That's under 18.12. Sorry, let me get there real quick.
EDC.
So it's gonna be 18.12 F1. Right now that reads for final plat approval, and then it says, the town council suggests either the town engineer or the DRC. That should read that, the final plat approval shall be, or for final plat approval, the administrative land use authority shall be, and then we need the planning commission to determine if that's going to be the town engineer or the DRC.
Okay, so that's one change, right?
Yes, and then there were a few things punctuation wise that were mentioned in your comments. And those are changes that will need to be made to the ordinance as well. One of them was that a period needed to be placed at 18.02.g.1. And the other was in reference to the ordinances that this is being applied to. That's under 18.10.b.3. It currently reads municipal ordinance. It should be municipal ordinances because the developer would be required to comply with all town ordinances that are applicable to the application, not just the subdivision ordinance. And then as far as the other comments, I have notes on those. I can go through those. They won't make any changes to the subdivision code itself, but I can go through those with the commission if you'd like.
At some point that would be helpful, just so that we have a better understanding of the law.
Okay. So I can just start through those real quick. The Under 18.06.A.1, the question was, or was asking for an example. This refers to boundary line adjustments. This is something that's specified in state code. And according to how state code defines this, it says that, boundary line adjustments that do not have dwelling units on them, would not require review by the planning commissioner, by the administrative land use authority. It looks like state code allows the town to establish a process, where that could be reviewed by the planning commission. But this reference to boundary line adjustments was something that was previously in the subdivision code, or is currently in virgin subdivision code. So it was something that we just took and put back into this ordinance. It's not a new thing that's coming from these changes from the state.
Thank you on that one.
The next question was 1810A5B. And this is talking about the where it says the town checks the submittal for completeness. And then says if the submittal is found to be incomplete, the submittal is returned to the applicant. No review shall commence until the town has made a determination that the application is complete. The question was, how will the completion of all steps be documented? So that's something that wouldn't pertain to the ordinance itself, but it is something that as the town crafts their application for this, they'll probably want something in place that shows that whoever is reviewing the application for completeness has a spot to sign and say, this is who I am, and I've deemed it complete, and it was deemed complete on this date. And that'll be important because the day that it's deemed complete is when the review period starts. But that would be outside the ordinance. It would just be when the town develops their application.
Thank you.
And then the next question refers to 1810A7, A7A. And that's talking about, in this portion of the code, it says the review cycle dates, restrictions, and requirements do not apply to the review of subdivision applications affecting property within identified geological hazard areas. The question that came from this was that much of Virgin hasn't been evaluated for geological hazard areas. What this would apply to, as far as this ordinance is concerned, would be any currently identified geological hazard areas. That would include FEMA floodways as well. And so all this clause does is allow for the town to take the time it needs to review those applications. And so they're not subject to the 40-day review window if it's in a geological hazard area. As far as if the town is going to perform some sort of study to determine any additional geological hazard areas, I'm not aware of anything with that. That would be outside the scope of this ordinance.
Thank you.
That it, Riker?
No, there's a few more. So 1810A8B refers to compliance with municipal ordinances. The question here was whether or not we needed to include a direct reference to VULU. We wouldn't need to because we don't want it to just be the VULU. It would be any applicable ordinances that the town has. So your
So
zoning
does
ordinances, go ahead.
Does municipal include land use though?
It would include that, yeah. So when it says municipal ordinance, it should be umbrella over all ordinances that the town currently has adopted.
Thank you.
Yes. And then, so we talked about the checklist. 1810A11, 1810B3. There was a question about whether or not this contradicts 1810A11. And so to explain this a little bit better, this ordinance refers to a review process and then an approval process. The review process is not performed by the planning commission. That is performed by city staff, preferably the town engineer, because there are engineering plans that are being submitted to the city that need to be reviewed. Additionally, utility companies that are involved in that, whether that's the Water Conservancy District or Ash Creek Sewer District or anyone else who's involved in those plan reviews. The approval process is what is being done by the planning commission. And so what this does is that 40-day review window applies to the review process. And so in 1810B3, when it's talking about the approval process and saying that if the planning commission finds that the application complies with applicable municipal ordinances or doesn't comply, that's when you're reviewing it for approval. Whereas in the other section where it's talking about if the town finds that it complies with ordinances, they are reviewing it to recommend it to the planning commission. Does that make sense?
Yes.
And then under 1810B4, that refers to the time periods that are included in this ordinance for the expiration of applications and the expiration of approval. The question that came from this was if 6 months was the length of a timely action. So this time period that was included here came after some discussion with the town council. And they determined that 6 months was an adequate time period. And then that's why there's a clause included in there that a 6-month extension may be granted if the applicant requests it prior to the expiration of the initial period of time. And if the planning commission, well, the administrative land use authority, which would be the planning commission in this instance, determines that an extension should be granted. So it doesn't require the extension, but it allows the planning commission to grant that if there's extenuating circumstances.
Thank you.
And then there was a question on 1812B6B, and this refers to water conveyance facilities. The question here was, do natural drainages and washes and naturally occurring springs meet the definition of a water conveyance facility? So the language that's included here comes directly from that portion of state code that is referenced there, which is 73-1-15.5-1B. And it's referring specifically to water courses that are conveying water for irrigation or storm drainage. It wouldn't natural washes wouldn't necessarily fall under this definition. It would depend on whether or not that wash is owned by another entity and is being used to convey water to customers or clients for irrigation. And so if the wash is on the property of the developer, then you wouldn't need to notify the developer because they're the applicant.
Did you mention stormwater?
Yeah, so stormwater is included, storm drainage is included in that.
So if you have a natural drainage that feeds to a conduit, which we have several times here in town. My question is particularly about those circumstances and how this applies to that.
About which circumstances? I'm sorry.
So we have several areas in town with a natural drainage that feeds into a conduit. Yonder street, large concrete tube. That's storm drainage conveyance, and does that apply here? I think and I don't know if you can answer that now, but to me, that would be an important thing for everyone to understand before we start implementing.
So yeah, that is a good question. There's a couple of different things that could apply there. I'm not sure if it would apply to water conveyance. The wash itself would apply to water conveyance facility, but the culvert would. The other thing is that typically those natural washes are mapped on the FEMA flood map, so it would fall under geological hazard potentially, and any alteration of that or anything that might affect that would have requirements there as well. Like a developer couldn't come in and just alter a wash and therefore alter the drainage for all of the surrounding properties. There's things that they have to comply with FEMA there. This might be a question we want to, as these things come up, we want to pose to the town attorney. He might have a better understanding of whether or not those natural washes do apply as a water conveyance facility or not.
Yeah, I'd like to be more clear on that.
Mhm. Yeah, and so, and that definition that's included there is straight out of state code. And then the other question, I think this is the last one on the ordinance itself, is 1816-4, which refers to open space. This was something that was taken from the previous subdivision ordinance as well. As I was reading through this, in reference to the question was, one of the questions was regarding a nonprofit conservation organization. And this kind of falls out as far as defining what this open space is and how it would apply to a nonprofit organization is a little bit outside the scope of these subdivision requirements. But from what my understanding is here is that the open space in general is land that's restricted from future development. And so what it's referring to here in your code talks about area is, I believe it says in a nonprofit conservation organization. That would be different than just any nonprofit organization.
So like a conservation easement, or like,
No,
Rio de Zion has some open space set aside there, for a nonprofit conservation organization. Your homeowners, you're out to make a
That's
profit.
probably a profit, but it's not a conservation organization.
Right, yeah, I might need more clarification on that one. I apologize if I agree with it.
no, that's good. That's another question that I think we might want to ask the attorney about. But then the next question that kind of related to the same section was about parking and whether or not parking is considered open space. As it's defined in your code now, it does allow for parking that is used to access the open space to be counted as open space. However, that implies that parking, that other uses of parking do not count as open space. As far as I can see in your code, there's no specific definition for open space that says that parking is or is not included in that, other than that portion about the open space or the parking used to access the open space.
Thank you so much.
Yep. And then there were questions about the checklist as well. That checklist is, there was a question about where verification that the proposed final plats and preliminary plats meet the land use ordinances. So that verification again would take place on the application, not on the checklist. The checklist is just intended to be provided to the applicant so that they know what to provide to the town when they submit their application.
Is this,
Process.
is this,
Go ahead.
no, go ahead, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Finish.
The process for revision of that document is intended to be the same process for the town uses to revise any of its policies. Typically that's something that goes either through the mayor or through the town council. It just depends on what process the town has set up for that. It's not required, it is required that the town have a checklist to provide to the applicant. It is not required that it's set up the way that we've set it up, so we can take those requirements and put them back in the ordinance if that's what the town would prefer. That does mean that any changes to those requirements require a land use amendment rather than just a simple policy change. And so the intent in separating those two was to allow the town, as they kind of go through these growing pains of having to deal with these changes, that they can say, well, we actually want to require more things on this, so let's make this policy change and add additional requirements for these subdivisions so that they can catch them quicker rather than having to go through a land use amendment.
Thank you, Riker.
Yep.
Did that complete your part, Riker?
Yes, that completes my comments there.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, item 2, discussion and possible vote on a new planning and zoning chairperson.
Did we address this last meeting?
We talked about that last week. Right, you're here tonight, my memory last week was that I think my comments were willing to do whatever. I felt it would be good to have a full quorum to elect, a chair. And, I'm willing to do whatever except be a permanent chair. So are there any comments with regards to those things we talked about last week, each Val?
Well, my memory is the same as yours regarding that discussion. We kind of talked about waiting until we have a new commissioner, but that doesn't seem to be happening with great speed. So I would not be adverse to, voting on a new planning and zoning chairperson tonight.
Any other comments about that? I would say also that I agree with what you just said. And that, sometimes it's not easy to find people that want to serve. And I think that's the case at the moment. I also know that the mayor is actively working on it. So, any comment, Larry?
I think I'm just mirroring what everybody else said, that last time we discussed it, you were willing to do chair until there was a full commission, and if that has changed, then I'm willing
And,
to.
and I think there's a good point made, as to that, we don't know how long that's gonna go. And, maybe having that order of having a chairperson amongst the 4 of us until hopefully we get a new 5th member. Who can step in and start to work with us on that.
And we re-vote in January, correct? I have that correct. So this is a 2.5 month appointment, so.
So I'm willing to hear a motion on that.
Well, Darlene, do you have any comment? We've been doing a bang up job and say.
No. That's nice. I appreciate that. If there's no motion, then we'll proceed as is. Val,
So you're asking for a motion to vote for a new planning and zoning
I
chair?
make the motion, but I'm asking if someone would like to make that motion.
I would like to make that motion.
Okay,
I move to appoint Darlene Pope as the new planning and zoning chairperson.
I second that.
That's all I was waiting for.
We'll vote. Larry, Ken, aye.
But we need to talk about effective date.
It has to be right, well, I guess it doesn't have to be ratified yet, it's only if we approve their. The one was on public hearing tonight. If the council wants to be the one that if they have to ratify our choice.
At this time, you do
No,
not.
but right now, we don't, yeah,
Right,
that's up for discussion,
right.
we're voting on it, so. At this point, we can choose somebody that we can all get along with, and not somebody that council says is more appropriate, so.
That's another issue that I wanted to discuss.
Expensive.
I'm sorry,
We discussed public hearings next week.
yeah. Okay. So, I have a motion. I have a second. I'll take the vote. Larry, Kent, I.
Valerie, yes? Yes.
Would accept.
I accept. I think that just sounded bad.
I will count the vote unanimous. Congratulations.
I have a question.
Yeah, question? Can you get up closer when you?
Oh, yeah, let me look at my computer. My, question is, last week our concern was, what if we had no chair? And Kent couldn't be here
I thought we voted Val as our co-chair.
as the, pro temp, but do we need to clarify which one of you want to continue as pro temp for the rest of this year?
Well, Valerie's already put it.
Pro temp, okay.
Valerie Protem,
Mhm.
did we vote on that?
Yeah, you're supposed to.
Last week.
That's perfect, that's great.
Did you see him go?
Okay. Kent, you're still a commissioner.
Yes, I understand.
And does he continue the meeting or is?
Yes.
And for today, I guess I'm still, pro temp. Or do we just change chairs now?
We only have one more item.
Yeah, okay, item 3, discussion and possible vote on ordinance 2024 subdivisions and ordinance amending and restating in its entirety chapter 18 of the Virgin Uniform Land Use Code to establish subdivision regulations that meet the requirements established by state code. Any comments, discussion?
Well, that's what Riker was explaining on my myriad of questions. I'm mostly comfortable with it. I didn't have too many things I would suggest changing because this is a template from the state. I just want to make sure I understand some things more deeply, and I still want to do that. But maybe look, these are questions I am able to shoot to our lawyer at some point when it's appropriate. Because that's where you get into the weeds and the disputes and the bad feelings and the misunderstandings. And so I think this is a great time to have a clear understanding. Parts of it are really, really like. And I have no problem moving it forward with the changes he made, which were up for public hearing tonight.
And if I could, I think the clarifying of an existing drainage, if we can forward that concern to town council with our vote, I would be comfortable with that.
Okay.
And did you answer the question who the administrative land use authority is that us? Yeah.
You know, to personalize this a little bit, I think I may have spoken to some of you about this, but I have spoken to a lot of people. I have washed, Diane and I have come through our property. And it's been a real battle because the development as it was developed didn't appropriately take care of mitigating that wash for the development. And then it becomes, as someone comes in and buys a lot and is not familiar with what can happen in that wash. And we have flash flood and it washes out the driveway and goes across the paved street and into another lot and out through back wall and all things of poor subdivision planning. And I know that's probably easy to say for me. And also easy for me to understand that there's been a lot of pressure of development in the last few years that has brought attention to these things to us, that we now have to fine tune these kinds of ordinances.
And there's, I would ask everyone to carefully read, because it addresses land suitability, 18.41, that whole section. And that, I think, answers your question. 18.14 in the document, requirements for design and improvements. Number one is land suitability.
And this is applying to new subdivisions, not existing.
Yeah.
I understand, yeah, this would be,
To avoid things like you just described.
thank you. Any other comments?
Can I make a comment?
Okay,
Please.
Is this right?
Yes, this is Riker. I would just request that any recommendation that the commission makes include a specification on who is going to be approving the final plat, whether that's the town engineer or the DRC.
Thank you.
thank you, Riker. So is there a motion on the table?
Well,
There's none.
let's figure out, so we want who will approve the final plat, town engineer. Or the DRC. Is the town engineer also a part of the DRC?
Crystal, yes? Yeah, I like the idea of DRC.
As long as the engineers are part of that,
Right.
I'm comfortable with that.
Right, Charlotte just said that, yes, the engineer's part of it.
And then the second one was clarification
On natural drainages.
on.
Existing. The-
Should I have that Terry Storm?
I don't know, just drainages.
Okay. And that, we could actually put, Riker, do you know the section of, the new law, the new code that would, where we need to put in who will approve the final plat?
Yes, that's gonna be under, it's 18.12.f1.
Thank you. And let's see, let me see if I can pull up that other, because that'll make it easier for the council.
Was that F as in Frank?
F is in Frank, yes.
The natural drainage is 1812. E6. So we can put that in as well. Are there any other recommendations you would make, Riker?
No, just that the grammatical errors that you mentioned in your comments be corrected, that period and then the S added to the end of ordinance.
Okay.
If you wouldn't mind making this motion.
Yes, with all the notes.
I make the motion that we recommend approval.
There's still need to go to a public hearing, you guys are making too many,
Oh, did we?
you had it, but now you guys made so many changes, you're gonna have to send it back to public hearing, correct, Riker?
So I guess that's my question is the grammatical changes themselves wouldn't constitute significant changes. However, the under where we're determining who is going to be approving the final plat,
That would be.
it did reference in the ordinance that it would be either the town engineer or the DRC, but we'd be changing that to specify just the DRC. And so it would probably be appropriate to hold an additional public hearing with that change noticed.
So, Crystal, so how do we get this information to the town council? So they can get it back to us, because we have to put it on our next public hearing. right?
Yeah, are you wanting clarification from the town council of what they would recommend?
On those two things.
If you could send it to me in email, I'll talk to them in their work meeting tomorrow, or you can show up in their work meeting tomorrow and talk to them. Share.
Where would this be in their work meeting?
Well, it's their work meeting, it can happen at any time in their work meeting, but
Can Darlene zoom in?
yeah, you can zoom in, I can interrupt them.
Yeah. Don't mind.
Yeah. I can pencil me in somewhere in there, and
You got skills.
I got skills.
Right, then. You don't have a recommendation, right?
But this still keeps us in the time.
It will
Correct.
have to be public hearing and vote, that same thing, you guys.
Like we did with, and that's.
I think that's-
But
the
it's
thing,
okay,
because
because you guys have already had a public hearing on that, and this is a minor grammatical error that.
And we just have the public hearing on those changes, correct?
Yeah, because you're making that
Right.
significant change, like Riker said, because it's not just a grammatical error, it's a significant change to define who is looking at the final plat.
And then the town council will send those changes to Riker, and Riker will make them.
Well, those two changes, yeah, they'll send them over to me, or if you were suggested to you or whatever, we'll get it figured out between the two of us and get it on the public hearing for November.
Yeah.
You guys will vote on it, we'll have the public hearing for November 13th, is that what it is? And you'll vote on it that night, it's going to have to be a public hearing and vote.
Okay, that's fine.
In order for this to go through in
Correct.
time, for town council and everybody to go through.
Okay.
But it's gonna be, because we already had one public hearing on it,
Right,
such a small,
And these are small
Right.
clarifying changes.
Yeah.
okay, cool.
so that it's safe enough for us to do it, unless you pass it through with these small errors and leave it with.
Well, the only major, the one is just clarification,
Mhm.
and I don't know if that will require some change in the language. And I don't know if we're allowed to do that, so that's important that the town
How
council.
much are you languaging it, changing it?
I don't know, it's just like, I don't think in the way it is currently written, which is from state code, that it is clear what.
Are you
It's-
referring to the water conveyance facility section?
Yeah,
So,
and because it does, because I do think. If there's a drainage and it doesn't feed to a culvert or a storm water system. That would not be covered. But if it does, I believe it would be covered, and that's what I would like to know if I'm correct or incorrect on my understanding.
yeah,
Does that make
and
sense?
yes, it does. The only thing I'm thinking of is if the entity that is using that wash has not identified it as as a water conveyance facility, then it wouldn't apply either. So for example, well, it'd be good to get clarification, but I don't think that it would change how it is spelled out in the ordinance. If that makes sense, not in this one. If the town would like to require that all washes. But you'd have to, the thing is that if the town wanted to require that all of those washes be designated as water conveyance facilities, the town would have to be able to provide contact information for the owners of each and every one of those washes to the developer. Because they would have to be contacted and notified of every application within 100 feet of those washes.
I can think of several in town. This is a real question,
It's been problems before,
and yes,
it's created problems.
so that's why I think is. If
Well,
we
and
can- if we can get clarity on this prior to December 31st, that would help with application of law and reduce frustration, both for our staff and for potential developers.
And where the language of the ordinance does say, I believe it says, or other water courses. If the
Mhm.
town determined that those washes, the owners of those washes needed to be notified. I think it would be appropriate for them to require that of the applicant. After clarification was gained from the town attorney. Meaning that we wouldn't necessarily have to change the language in the ordinance because it does allow for other water courses. Not just, because I believe it doesn't mention washes specifically. It says a ditch, canal, flume, pipeline, or other water course. And so wash would fall under other water course if it were to be applied to this ordinance.
And Riker, just another kind of clarification question. I think it's 18.12.12 F1A. It says completing the final plat application review. It says that for the final plat approval, and it says the town council suggests either the town engineer or the DRC. But right after that, it says no public hearing may be held for the subdivision final plat approval. But there is a ordinance on the table that would make the DRC a body that would have to have notice and public hearings,
No, not public hearings, public notice.
just public notice.
Yes.
So it's not a public
Yeah,
hearing.
DRC, there, you can observe it. Right, but you cannot comment. And what this would do, is to put it on the public website, when those meetings are.
So it's already suggested or not suggested, or it is, it says the town council suggested that either town engineer or DRC. The public was aware that we were gonna make that decision and nobody came here today to tell us they had an opinion one way or the other. Don't we feel like we could vote on it other than the waterway, just to get it moved on? If we decided.
Well, that, we were told that we have a public hearing, and then we discuss, and then we vote. And that whenever possible, that we do not do a public hearing and a vote. The exception being, if we've had a public hearing, there's pretty minor changes. Then we can.
Then why is it on our agenda to vote on? What I understand.
Because if we didn't make these changes, we could have voted on it tonight, or we would have voted on it tonight, but we're putting it off because we're making changes. And having another public hearing just for those changes, not for the whole ordinance. Right?
So I don't think it's a major change. I think it says that we were gonna pick one or the other.
Well, the
Then
town
we just pick
council,
one.
You're making a change, if it's just grammatical errors, it's fine, but if you're making a change significant enough to affect the land use or the
enforcement,
enforcement of the land use, then it has to go back to public hearing. And in this case, you're making, who it is making a decision of the land use. So therefore, it would have to go back to public hearing. It's so small, I get it, but
To me, it's not even small, it was already on there, where it says we're gonna make a choice tonight on whether it's gonna be DRC or town engineer. The public was noticed that that's what we're gonna do tonight, and that's what we're doing, so why do we have to have another public hearing?
because I don't know that we're the one who makes that choice. Riker, is the town council making that choice, or do we make that choice?
Well, then if the town council's making it, then there's no issue, just move it on.
Yeah, Riker?
So the town council discussed it and requested that it be put in the ordinance this way for the planning commission to decide whether or not it would be the engineer or the DRC. So the
And,
council is
yes.
requesting that the
Okay.
planning commission make that
So if
decision.
we make that change tonight, and the others are just grammatical,
That's my point, is that we should
Yeah.
vote on it.
and the other one, because I think some of my question and concern might be covered under 18.14.
I would,
Especially drainage ways that contain running water during spring runoff or during storm events. I think there's my concern.
Right.
What number is that?
18.14 requirements for design and preference, one,
1, 6.
I would just suggest that if there's any doubt as to whether or not this is a significant change, that just to be safe, a public hearing be held again on after these revisions have been made.
So you would recommend approval and let the town.
I'm not thinking real quick.
Okay.
Let me see the answers back.
Well, except Riker just said the town council has asked us to.
And then, yeah, so we can make the DRC one.
Right,
I think we're right. I don't know, we're leaning for, I'm leaning for DRC, what about you?
yeah,
Larry, what are your thoughts?
I understand that the public work is moves a little slower than private, and one that we have to be transparent, but I feel like it's pretty well explained here, and it's the question's been asked on the document, so all the public who cared could read it and known that we were gonna make a decision tonight, whether it was gonna be DRC or the engineer.
No, my question, yeah, so my question is, what are your thoughts on having it be DRC or the town engineer? Which do you,
DRC,
so, okay, so we're all unanimous. on that.
DRC.
knowing that the engineer is on the DRC, I feel like.
that's a really good point. The language in there does kind of say it's gonna be one or the other.
Yeah, so we're just,
Is that what you're asking, Heath?
yeah, if that requires a public hearing, there's nothing we can do about that, right?
Right,
But it'll just be.
but maybe it won't. Maybe it won't require a public hearing. We can vote on it.
If it said it was gonna be the town engineer and we changed it to the DRC,
That's a good point.
Correct,
then I would say yes, but if
Right,
that was always an option,
correct.
and the public was noticed about that
Right.
option, then.
Let's get clarity on that. Yeah, I'm gonna make my time. 7:45.
Okay, so do we need,
we're waiting for
Okay.
answer clarification, and then we'll make our decision and then we'll figure it out. They can choose, if not. Not the fact that we know that.
That's my.
Said no,
He said.
He said, no, what?
We do not.
does not have to go back for public hearing.
Okay, Larry.
Okay.
You are the boss.
I want to make sure we got it done by the end of the year.
So
That's great.
let's practice this motion.
Yes,
We're going to recommend that the DRC approve the final plan. Right?
yes,
And that, the noted, we'll have a list of any grammatical errors to be corrected. Do we still want to ask for clarification on that other thing?
on the waterway.
Yeah,
Or is it, I think it's cleared up in that second.
In that
thing we
second
looked at.
section.
Yeah. So I don't.
so
think
that's, so
need
we only
further
have those two
clarification.
things, right?
Mhm. All right,
I make, well, I can't, oh yeah, I can. I make a motion to recommend approval. The subdivision ordinance,
yeah,
is that, enough?
doesn't have a whole number yet.
With the recommendation that the DRC approve final plats and that any grammatical errors be corrected.
I second.
we have a motion and a second? Hold the vote, Larry, Darlene, Val,
Yes,
Kent, yes. Unanimous, don't we have, this zone change that we need to still discuss?
no, that was
We
a public
discuss
hearing.
next week.
It's next week in our work meeting?
We have a public hearing, we just listen, and then we discuss the next week, and then we vote for following the meeting.
Any other items that anybody wants to bring up before we close?
Move we close the public meeting.
Have a second?
that too.
Have a motion and a second to close the public meeting and adjourn. All in
Yes.
favor, say aye.
Yeah.
Nice work,
Getting her done.
yeah.
That was good. I'm really glad that Riker was